Barakata Yahweh, Barakata Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash, Barakathom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule and teach well. And peace and salutations to Ya'akim out there pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the brother Raya with another video, and I'll be profiling this video on YouTube titled Civil War 2.0 is Overdue according to Strauss-Howe Theory, and it's on a page named Timcast. And the information that this Edomite presents in this video speculates that there's going to be a second civil war, which there will be a second civil war, and it's all been prophesied to happen in these scriptures of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, the only truth out there. This is Mark chapter 3, verse 24 to 25. And if a kingdom be divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. And if a house be divided against itself, that house cannot stand. And you can clearly see that this kingdom of the United States of America, biblically known as Babylon the Great, is divided on pretty much every line it could be divided on gender lines, on racial lines, on political lines, what have you. And even more specific, this house of Esau, Edom, these so-called white people, is clearly divided as well. You've got these feminist-minded so-called white women against these white men. You've got these liberal Edomites against these conservative Edomites, and it's all going to culminate in a bloody civil war amidst a race war, as well as a state of martial law, and World War III, of course. This is Isaiah 19. I'm going to read verse 1 to 2. The burden of Egypt, and the United States of America is also known biblically as Egypt, as well as Sodom, besides Babylon the Great. Just go to Revelation 11 and 8. Behold, Yahweh rideth upon a swift cloud, and shall come into Egypt, and the idols of Egypt shall be moved at his presence, and the heart of Egypt shall melt in the midst of it. And I will set Egyptians against the Egyptians, a house divided cannot stand. Edomites against Edomites, liberal Edomites against conservative Edomites, gay Edomites against straight Edomites, male Edomites against female Edomites, etc., etc. And they shall fight, everyone against his brother, and everyone against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom. And there's going to be no more Make America Great Again. This is the last hoorah of not just America, but these Edomites in general, because as it says in Job chapter 14, verse 5, seeing his days are determined, the number of his months are with thee, thou hast appointed his bounds that he cannot pass. And Esau, Edom, has just about reached his bounds which he cannot pass. He's done just about everything he was prophesied to do and allowed to do through the will of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. Put you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, which are the true children of Israel, into a hardcore bondage and slavery. Get the world, the fatness of the earth, and the dew of heaven into his hands through his blessing, the sword. And now we're just waiting for this last thing, waiting for the last thing that these Edomites are going to do, which is implement the mark of the beast, which is that microchip implant. And as we build up to that, these curses that the Most High put on us for not obeying his law, statutes, and commandments are the curses that the Most High is beginning to put upon these Edomites, which are leading to these kingdoms of these Edomites being divided, as well as these houses of these Edomites being divided. Egyptian against Egyptian, brother against brother. This is Deuteronomy 30 and 7. And Yahweh thy power will put all these curses upon thine enemies, and on them that hate thee, which persecuted thee. And what are some of these curses? Deuteronomy 28 and 54. So that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eye shall be evil toward his brother. A house divided cannot stand. I shall set Egyptian against Egyptian, brother against brother, city against city, kingdom against kingdom, and toward the wife of his bosom, and toward the remnant of his children, which he shall leave. Now let's get into this video.
You may have heard me say many times, I believe I said in the Joe Rogan podcast, that I think we're headed for some kind of civil conflict. I don't know what it will look like, but I believe there will be a massive and major crisis which will shake us to our cores. Many people have referred to the coming of the Second American Civil War. Some people say we're already in it. We may be in it and just not realize, because until something massive happens, we don't look back to determine when it started. For all we know, it could have started with Charlottesville. But I believe that in the coming years, we're going to see street level violence escalate.
And that whole Charlottesville riot was liberal Edomites against conservative Edomites at that Unite the Right rally.
We're going to see an escalation in murder, violence, and political violence. It's getting worse. I think this may come after Donald Trump wins his second term. I think it's very, very likely he will. Economic forecast models say he will, and the left won't be happy about that. If you go on Wikipedia, you will see a section for the Second American Civil War where it says culture war as Second American Civil War. In the 21st century, during an ongoing culture war between American conservatives and liberals over opposing cultural, moral, and religious ideals, conservative Dennis Prager claimed that Americans are actually in the midst of the Second Civil War, albeit not necessarily violent, while acknowledging that extreme partisan politics on Capitol Hill, accompanied by related commonplace verbal and occasional physical acts of aggression in the streets, are tearing apart the fabric of American society. Political and social commentators point to the fact that culture war cycles are imminent to the process of replenishing American values, and the first such cycle started after George Washington's retirement, and that Americans have to find America's middle again and return to civility. There is evidence to suggest we may actually be moving into an actual crisis, and there's something called the Strauss-Howe generational theory. Do you know what this is? Basically, it's called the fourth turning theory, that there are essentially four periods: the high, the awakening, the unraveling, and the crisis. There are many reasons to believe that we may be walking right into the crisis. You can see that I've clicked it previously. First, they believe the high began in 1946. Actually, let me do this first. You may have seen this quote by a guy named G. Michael Hoff. At least that's where everyone claims the quote came from. He says, "Hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times." I don't know who this guy is. I don't know, I think he was like a Marine or something. So, of course, people are going to be like, oh, Tim's quoting this guy who did this thing. I don't know. This just popped up on a Reddit thread I was reading, okay? So I have a Reddit thread from Shower Thoughts talking about how, by always blaming millennials, we are showing that our generation, which raised them, doesn't take any responsibility for our problems. I saw this quote, something like strong people make easy times. I looked it up, found it was from this guy. That is kind of a meme version of what this is, the high. It's when things were, just coming off of a crisis, which was World War II. Things were great, but then JFK was assassinated, and this was an awakening. They say in the high, there's a lot of conformity. Everyone's focused on the institution. Yes, World War II. After that, everyone's like, we gotta stick together and make sure it doesn't happen again. The awakening shows you where things get bad, and then people start, developing personal authenticity. Young activists look back at previous high as an era of cultural and spiritual poverty. They say U.S.'s most recent awakening was the consciousness revolution, spanned from the campus and inner city revolts of the mid-1960s. Then the unraveling. They say the third turning is an unraveling. The mood of this era, they say, is in many ways the opposite of a high. Institutions are weak and distrusted, while individualism is strong and flourishing. The authors say highs come after crises. The authors say highs come after crises when a society wants to coalesce and build and avoid death and destruction of the previous crisis. Unravelings come after awakenings, when society wants to atomize and enjoy. They say the most recent unraveling in the U.S. began in the 80s and included the long boom and the culture war, which I believe is now. Which leaves us with one thing. We're heading into a crisis. And they mention that the crisis often includes conflict. They say, according to the authors, the fourth turning is a crisis. This is an era of destruction, often involving war or revolution, in which institutional life is destroyed and rebuilt in response to a perceived threat to the nation's survival. After the crisis, civic authority revives, cultural expression redirects towards community purpose, and people begin to locate themselves as members of a larger group.
Which is not going to happen. Again, seeing his days are determined, the numbers of his months are with thee. Thou hast appointed his bounds which he cannot pass. No more make America great again.
The authors say the previous fourth turning was the Wall Street crash of 1929 and climaxed with the end of World War II. They describe each turning lasting about 20 to 22 years. 4 turnings make up a full cycle of about 80 to 90 years. Now, are you ready for the best part, my friends? I hope you are prepared. You got your MREs, you bought your gold because they're coming for you. I'm kidding. I will say this. I do have a box of MREs. Not because I think the world is going to end, or I think I'm gonna be chasing out of my home and starving.
He's not in the right spirit, because that's clearly what's going to happen to him. This is 2nd Esdras chapter 15. I'm going to jump to verse 15. For the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up to fight against another. Speaking of that race war against this, among the civil war between these Edomites, and swords in their hands, that modern day sword being that gun. For there shall be sedition among men, brother against brother, city against city, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. These Edomites are going to go against the government as well, realizing that these political officials did not have their best interests in heart. Verse 17, a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able to, a state of martial law, to where the only way you'll be able to move around is if you have that microchip implant to identify who you are, which is the mark of the beast. Verse 18, for because of their pride, the city shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. Verse 19, a man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation. Let's rewind this a little bit.
I will say this. I do have a box of MREs. Not because I think the world is going to end, or I think I'm gonna be chasing out of my home and starving.
A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation.
I have MREs just because, for one, have you ever had an MRE? They're actually pretty tasty. But also, I have Band-Aids, I have a first aid kit, I have water. I never use any of them. I almost never use Band-Aids. In fact, the cat scratched me. I don't know if you can see my finger. And I didn't put a Band-Aid on it. Band-Aids, you rarely use, but you have them. And I feel the same way about any emergency supply. So I have batteries, I have things for emergencies. Just being, chance favors the prepared, as they say. But I hope you're prepared for this. I saw this post earlier today. They actually locked the comment because of the politics that was popping up in the comment section. Let me, you can see it. We are at the same amount of time from World War II as they were from the Civil War, as they were from the American Revolution, about 80 years each. How damn interesting that we are in the midst of a culture war with escalating tensions and street violence just before the cycle is set to complete. So, 80 years ago, World War II. 78 years, I believe 78 years before that, Civil War. And 81 years before that, the American Revolution. There was a crisis and a war every 80 years. When I saw this, I thought, whoa. I saw this morning and I said, whoa. Every 80 years, a major conflict, be it with, first, international war, civil war, international. Are we facing an internal conflict today? In my opinion, we are. Absolutely. So, I decided to pull up this story. BU historian.
Point blank period. And there's no speculation of whether it's going to happen or not going to happen. It is going to happen, again, through these scriptures of Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushai. And I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians. Civil war. So with this video, I hope you sincere Akim were edified. Just keep pushing this word and hope that you can make your calling and election sure to be saved from these coming calamities of Jacob's trouble. And as always, I'm going to say Abba Bal, Kwam Yasharala. Till next time, Shalom.